Karen Sawyer. I'm editor of the Dot Connector magazine and author of Soul Companions and a book coming out called The Dangerous Man. No, I'm using man in the generic sense of the word, as in mankind. And women are just as dangerous.
Low pressure in the northern hemisphere will always be anti-clockwise, and if you get a low pressure in the southern hemisphere it will always be clockwise, because it's called the Coriolis force. So if they drew a map, they would have Thebes at the top.
Why?
Well, because we're very northern centric, aren't we? There is no up and down.
Okay.
If you live in Australia,
Yeah.
Australia should be at the top, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
And they always complain that we're so northern centric. We always have the Earth the wrong way up.
Actually, that is a good point, because if you've got a globe, which way up
Well,
should it be?
So you had 6 quarts
Yes.
of
What did we say?
Dirt. In the course of working on Left at East Gate. And I had 2 quarts, as they told me what to do. Get 2 quarts from the affected area, which was very effective. 2 quarts from about the edge, and 2 quarts from out in the field. Anyway, I'm coming back to the States, and you fill out an entry card. And I'm going down the things. I don't have any fruit, vegetables, sausages, firearms, you know. And I noticed for the first time in my life that there's actually a box that says soil. It's pre-9/11. They're not going to check my baggage. There's not going to be a problem getting it in. But then I think it through and say, you know, if I don't go on record with this and I get caught, I have a problem. That's minor. I'm more concerned with the book will come out, we'll have a soil analysis or show that I'm not ethical. We'll say I've done some investigation and research and there is no record of you bringing soil into this country. So, you know, you either lied or you broke the law. So I'm flagged in customs at JFK. I am taken with my baggage to a little room by a customs official. Why do you have soil? Well, my co-author had an experience in England and the soil has to do with it. What kind of experience? And I realized there's no getting around this. And within like 5 questions, it was, well, it has to do with the UFO incident. Right, hold everything. I'll be right back. He walks out, and I hear the door lock. Me and my dirt are now locked in this room at JFK. Several minutes pass, and he comes back in with 3 other or American customs. They're all standing there serious as they can be. My bag is now open. They're looking at these containers in the bag. And he looks at me and says, so, tell us about the UFO.
Something I talk about occasionally is on the moon landings. Did they happen? Have NASA told us the truth? I think not.
So I'm quite interested in the whole NASA secret space program and ideas around that.
NASA, never a straight answer, will not tell us what actually happened. But I claim that given the variety of photographs that they claim were taken on the moon, I don't see it happening. I think those are photographs taken during the training exercises. I don't see evidence for man landing on the moon. Despite what people might want to believe, that's a different story from actually knowing it happened.
He says, tell us about what's happened. What happened?
I've spent 10 years, 12 years examining the evidence, and I've yet to find evidence which is conclusive proof that man has landed on and returned from the moon.
And I tell him, as compressed version as I can, the Rendlesham story and the Third Night's incident.
NASA also stands for numerous anomalies and scams allowed.
Everything is carefully labeled with labels. There's tape around the collars of the plastic containers. He says, what are you going to do with those when you get to the States? I said, well, they're getting FedExed out tomorrow to the lab. What's the name of the lab? I said, well, actually it's Springborn Environmental Laboratory in Ware, Massachusetts. He takes down a big loose leaf binder, goes through it. Yeah, that's an accredited lab. He says, you're not going to open that though, like all the Martian germs are going to infect New York. I say, oh no. He says, you're not. I said, no, I swear it's going to go out. And I left with my 6 quarts of dirt. They were analyzed. The results were absolutely shattering. And they're included at the end of Left at East Gate.
Anything that sort of is outside consensus reality, whether it be UFOs, deep politics, all sorts really. There's an assumption or a stereotype about people who come to this place that somehow, you know, crazy UFO wackos or, you know, conspiracy theorists, and no one, I think, really fits that stereotype. Having subjects that are not included in the media or the mainstream media, then it brings all sorts of interesting people in. And as I say, that's part of the charm of this conference. So it's amazing, you know, here we are in Liverpool, and it's got such a cross-section of people and such a cross-section of nationalities, but yet everyone seems to be getting on okay. There's been no fights yet.
I call it revisionary theology, so looking at the original texts and trying to put them into the historical record, because you have a big conundrum here that all of these very, very famous people, very influential people who have influenced all of the Western world are missing from the historical record. It's almost as if these texts have been written on a different planet, you know, about events on a different planet. But they weren't. They were written about events here. We know the location, we know roughly the era. So we only have two options here. Either all of this is mythology and it's just being made up, or perhaps we're looking in the wrong locations and the wrong era to find these people.
Is that your art?
Yeah, it is stuff. I just wanted to cover up this room. No, I was only kidding on that. That's just...
That's not your art?
It is my art, yeah.
Okay, so...
Especially if people want to pay a lot of money for it. I noticed they're all still there and there's no offers on the table. We're hoping.
The first batch of files was released in May 2008. We've had 4 batches released to date. This is going to take another year or two. And every time this happens, there is more and more mainstream media coverage, and people are, I think, waking up to the fact that, hey, look, this isn't just some guy out walking his dog late at night seeing a vague light in the sky. This is police officers seeing these things, commercial airline pilots, UFOs being tracked on radar.
The case of Parviz Jafari in Iran, he attempted to launch an air-to-air missile at the UFO, but his weapons control panel then went offline. It was very interesting. Everything else in the aircraft was functional.
How did the streaming go? The live stream?
In the end, it went excellently. Thank you. Thanks in a very, very large part to the person that I'm looking at now behind the camera.
Okay. So initially you were very skeptical, is that right?
I was very skeptical when I was first given the job of looking into UFOs for the British government. I thought this was all nonsense. I thought these people had either seen something perfectly ordinary and misidentified it, or I felt that some of them were deluded, some of them were simply making it up. When I looked back through the archive of files, the MOD has been looking at this issue since the 50s, received over 12,000 UFO sightings since then. When I look back through those files, when I did the day-to-day business of researching and investigating the new sightings reported, I began to realize, hang on a minute, whatever you think UFOs are, there is a serious defense and national security angle to some of this.